They call this Australia Day, I heard.
Yeah, you know, Australia is meant to be a celebration of everything Australia and our history. I think we could choose a better date.
This is not a day to celebrate. This is a day of mourning for us.
This is a war!
Well, is it still okay to celebrate Australia Day? Or must we bow our heads in shame on what's called Invasion Day? Now, it's true, young Australians are increasingly taught to feel shame about our nation's British heritage. And the latest attempt to wipe Britain from the record is the effort to eliminate Australia Day on January 26. This is the commemoration of the first fleet of immigrants and convicts arriving in Sydney Cove in 1788. Now, opponents say this is no day for celebration, and it's undeniable that the British Empire did steal land and exploit Indigenous people, and only a lunatic would be proud of it. But was the foundation of our country an aggressive act that deserves total condemnation? Or is there still room for celebration? Well, let's start with some context. If the British hadn't colonised this great landmass, another nation would have done so. The Dutch, the Spanish, the French, or even the Japanese. Why? Because the world was shrinking. Navigation had advanced to a state where it was easy to go around the world in seaworthy vessels. And what's happened since British colonisation? Well, Australia has established itself as one of the world's leading nations, embracing humane values such as the rule of law, liberty and democracy, not to mention the support of parliamentary systems to nations all across the world. Remember too, the British, and what used to be called their Australian kinsfolk, they've also had a past that includes common achievements, great common achievements, such as the defeat of fascist Germany and Japan in 1945. Now, it's no coincidence that Australia has created significant prosperity for people. Australia was nurtured to be a place of fairness and justice, and giving it a fair go. One only has to walk around the smallest Australian town to recognise that the country is a place that uses the technologies, resources, expertise and experience of a non-Indigenous civilisation, and that its prosperity, our standard of living and our institutions flow from that. These are great Australian achievements and part of what the country should be marking on Australia Day. No wonder then that according to a recent IPA poll, 63% agree with the proposition Australia Day should be celebrated on January 26. Only 17% disagreed. At the same time, we appreciate our Indigenous people and culture. Far from belittling or disregarding Indigenous civilisation, we respect it. Now, there does remain an alarming gap between remote Indigenous communities and the rest of Australia, including Aboriginal people in city areas. CIS researchers have uncovered a lot of these issues in detailed papers that some mainstream media outlets just ignore. Now, remote communities are plagued by welfare dependency, alcohol and drug abuse, crime, intimate partner violence, and languishing education. Thankfully, some serious figures, led by our former CIS colleague and now Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, they're pushing back, rejecting victimhood, separatism and symbolism in favour of a new political paradigm. Their proposals, based on CIS research, focus on the importance of empowerment, the virtues of a strong work ethic, and a recognition of the limits of state power to correct societal ills. As Jacinta puts it, we should be thankful Australia is so peaceful. Forgiveness has always been an important aspect of Australian Indigenous culture. Holding on to resentments leads to further conflicts, which can very easily result in serious violence. Now, in response, Labor and the left accuses Liberals and Conservatives alike of waging a culture war. What do they mean, a culture war? That it's fine when progressive elites advance their radical cultural agenda with new demands and new rules, but resisting it is an act of aggression? Now, the fracas over Australia Day reminds us that the left often shout culture war to avoid debate. They don't wish to debate because they sense, rightly, that the Australian people will not be with them. Now, the message the Voice referendum sent last year, now remember, a 60-40 landslide defeat. The lesson here is that the people are tired of identity politics and the rancour and division it brings. We are all Australians, and as Jacinta Price says, Australia Day is a day to reflect, respect and celebrate that unity, and not to seek for political purposes to undermine or destroy it. Fortunately, a clear majority of Australians love to join in the party and celebrate the great nation to which it is our privilege to belong.